So the first direct in about 18 months, we have Splatoon 3 that was announced. So it was the big, final thing in terms of the Nintendo Direct, based off the events of the final Splatfest. So like one thing that is happening with Splatoon is that, from Splatoon 1 to Splatoon 2, the events of Splatoon 1, they actually changed what happened in Splatoon 2. So like I won't spoil it for those who want to like experience it for the first time. And then the events of Splatoon 2, in terms of the final Splatfest, it was Chaos versus Order, and Chaos won. So that has actually impacted the way that the game works. So the game is kind of like got almost like a chaotic feel to it, which I think is so cool that they're doing it like that. In terms of like the reveal, I thought it was really, really cool. Like, there was heaps of new weapons displayed, mobility options, just designs. I must admit, when I was watching it, it did feel like it wasn't going to be Splatoon 3. Like, it was obvious, okay, this is Splatoon, but I wasn't really clear that it was going to be Splatoon 3 at the start of watching it. And then basically, just like, just watching it through and going, okay, like here it is. The other one that I should say is that it's really set in almost like a deserty theme, and very sort of like drab colors, drab, like look and feel.
So is that kind of setting? Does that exist in the other games?
No, not the way it's structured.
Okay, because when it opened up, it definitely did feel like, everyone knows it's Splatoon, but what is it? And I think that's a common thing from when I've seen people react to it. But it would still be cool, and who knows what they'll do. It would be cool for them to expand more on that single player stuff in more of a like an exploration in those kind of areas. That's something I know that they've done DLCs where it did expand on the single player stuff a lot more. But I just think that honestly, that would actually get me more interested in trying out Splatoon 3
Same.
because the multiplayer when I tried it that weekend with you into God.
Yeah, when it was like free or something, right?
Yeah, for Splatoon 2. Look, it was fun. Like I can't deny that Splatoon 2 was great, and I'm sure that number 1 was as well. But the idea of spending that amount of money on a multiplayer only game is that I may not use all the time. Whereas if there's a good single player portion, and I don't know, did Splatoon 2 have a good single player stuff?
Yeah. So it's kind of weird because, like, look, like I'm the Nintendo shill on the podcast. I'll like say it up front. But for me, going through Splatoon 1 single player, which like definitely they designed it initially as a tech demo, right? Like hey, here's like a way to get your head around the controls and everything. And then, like get into the multiplayer. That's where the real game is. Like, I don't think anyone can really deny that. But having said that, I did really enjoy the single player of Splatoon 1. And then Splatoon 2, like they really amped it up even further. It was really, really sick. Like, I really like it a lot.
Because with look, and the settings obviously inspired this thought, but the idea of a mode that's almost like a cross between Splatoon and Borderlands actually sounds really appealing to me. Like that would be really cool. We can jump in vehicles and go across. Like the maps wouldn't. Borderlands maps generally aren't massive. Some of the later ones are, but like they don't have to be huge maps or anything. But I just like that idea of because I love the setting of Splatoon, everything I've ever seen of it, and everything. But yeah, so whereas from my understanding, so the single player portions in past games, and I'm completely ignorant of them, have they been more, smaller affairs with more linear levels and stuff?
Oh yeah, they're all very linear levels, like the way it's always worked. I really wonder what they're going to do with it, like whether they're going to go really hard on it or whether they're going to just, kind of keep it more of the same. Like, to be perfectly frank, well, actually, the Octo expansion that they had DLC for Splatoon 2 was single player DLC, and they went pretty hard in that, and that was really, really cool. So yeah, maybe they'll try to go hard in both directions. I mean, like this franchise has only been around for like 5-6 years now. It was 2015 when it came out for the Wii U, so it's pretty nuts for Nintendo because they don't really do many new IP, and then don't really stick to many new IP.
Well, it's also this because if they just stick with the multiplayer stuff mainly, now I know they've always had that single player, as you said. It this to me, and this comes from not a Splatoon fan, feels like the most like iterative, like not iterative, but like we talk about other franchises being it's the same in each sequel basically, when they just expand on certain stuff. Whereas Nintendo games feel like they innovate a lot more
Oh
in
yeah,
the
yeah.
game design. So I hope that they do actually add, and it's not just additions to the multiplayer, And again, I'm completely ignorant of Splatoon. I
I
will 100% say
don't
that.
think that that's what's going to happen. You know, with what you said, like that is very much a mantra at the company. It's sort of like, what can you give that's different, innovative, interesting? Otherwise, it's sort of like, what's the point? And partly the reason why they keep saying that they don't want to make another F-Zero game because it's a bit like, what can we do differently here? We don't know. But it doesn't really explain Mario Kart as a
I was gonna,
franchise
yeah,
because they kind of
or
just do the
Mario in
same.
general.
Yeah, or Mario Party. Like they really just roll those out, and honestly, a lot of the Mario sports games are very very similar to each other. Like so, yeah, I'd almost put it in that bucket, like the Mario Kart bucket. And I think that they're going to try to run it similar in terms of the cadence. So
I think it's fine to have both, right? I think because one thing that I always not griped but mentioned is getting over the whole Star Wars IP, getting over the whole Mario IP. It's just been done to death. It's such a cash cow for these companies that it's cool when they do different things, like Splatoon, for example. But the reality is, even within the world of Mario, they have innovated and changed the gameplay and the games
Well, that's
and
exactly
what
what I
you
was
do
getting
within
at.
them. Yeah, and I
That's
think
exactly what I was getting at.
it's the only thing is I noticed though, like I consciously noticed I'm playing Mario and I'm like, hey, this is really cool. But truth be told, I wish it had the mechanics of the game and everything else, but not necessarily it being a Mario character, because I am still over the whole Mario thing. Apologies to anyone who loves Mario. It's just that they could have had a brand new character in it, kept exactly the same mechanics, and I think I would have in some ways enjoyed it more. Because I'm also over the whole Mario's trying to run after the princess because Bowser, for whatever reasons, trying to marry her and stuff. Like, it's such a dumb story that
But it's become like
they could have done so much more with that.
But it's so tongue in cheek though these days.
Yeah.
That I actually find it.
It is, but I
and
feel
what do you want? You want like Mario has lost Luigi and he's been murdered?
No,
and-
that's what I mean. I want them
like-
to. I want them to. I don't want them anything, right? This is just my opinion. Who cares whether they do it or not? Maybe because I don't have that affinity for Mario, I would love to have seen a different character completely in a game like that. So not Mario himself, just a completely different character. And that's not, discounting the fact that there are funny moments where he does, him wearing shorts and shivering and certain things. I think are quite funny. But then there's also other elements where I'm like, man, I heard him making that sound for the last, 25 years or something. I'm sort of over that Yahoo and blah, blah, blah.
But you
kind of
barely
thing.
played those games, so I don't know how you're over it.
No, I think I played them enough. So like I played most of the Marios throughout my life. I haven't played the more recent ones like World and Land and stuff like that. And Galaxy maybe, but some of the classics I absolutely played all the classics, I think. Played Yoshi's Island, played all of those games.
I think for me though, like Mario is a vehicle for gameplay rather than something that needs to drive a crazy story. I think that criticism is very fair of Nintendo in general though. I think games like Zelda, like the Zelda series, I think you could fairly criticize them for, have they gone hard enough with the story? I probably don't think so in general.
I don't think they have. I don't even it's always the same story rehashed in Zelda as well.
But I mean, like,
no, not so much in Zelda. I mean,
okay, they had Ocarina of Time and stuff was a bit different. You're
no,
right.
no. I think I'm not saying that the stories in Zelda aren't different. They are different. I just think they could build a deeper story around a Zelda game. Like that, Breath of the Wild to me does not have a deep story. That's not
No,
the
it
point
doesn't
of
at
the
all.
game,
I'm like,
so-
okay, I gotta go kill some dude in a castle or something.
And in fact, Age of Calamity has a deeper story. But with Splatoon, what I love about it is it's got like a really specific lore that to me is very actually unique to Splatoon. And that includes the music, the look and feel. Like it's just one of those games that I feel like if someone did copy it, it'd just be so obvious. Similar to when games try to emulate a Fortnite style, and people just look at it and go, "Oh, it's like Fortnite. Like, what are they doing?" And
It's unique, yeah.
I wouldn't
Say
touch it.
Fortnite style, and every time, and I'm definitely not a Fortnite player in any way. Their style just seems like there's almost like no style to me whenever I look at it. It's weird.
Oh, really?
Like,
No,
yeah,
I think there's a definitive style, like a cartoony style that they have.
oh yeah, but I just every time I look at something from Fortnite, it just feels inconsistent to me. That's just my take.
Okay, I don't think you play it enough to be able to like really tell, because to me it's very consistent with the way that they roll these things out. But I'm not the hugest fan, but I played it a bit. But yeah, look, it's interesting. My view, like, I love this announcement. I was hyped about it. I think I told you guys before, I hope they announce Splatoon 3. I feel like we're due for a Splatoon 3. It's, 2022 is kind of, to me, was a bit of a bummer, just because I really, like they said beforehand in the direct that it's going to be games in this half of the year. That's what they said. So yeah, maybe it would have been at the end of the year, but the fact that it's next year, so that's most likely going to be March, April, May, because that's when they've released the other games, and it makes sense for that slot. But I'll be getting this day one for sure. And the biggest thing for me is I really hope that they fix at least the lobby system. Like, it drives me nuts that I can't just go, "Hey, Swinny, Mike, join my lobby, join my party," and then we can just play. And, they add an extra person. All they need to do is exactly what Rocket League does. How Rocket League handles lobbies is perfect, and they should just copy that.
Hear ye.
So I hope they do that. So I was really excited, but it felt like most people were a bit like, eh. It was like a bit of a flat note at the end of the direct. And then speaking of which,
Well, it was a very sorry, just on that, because you mentioned Borderlands as well, Swinny. The bus scene brought me back to Borderlands. It just, I don't know if it's a homage or
you
like
mean
a
the
little
train scene.
Train, bus, the transport scene. I don't remember exactly what it was now.
Train, yeah.
But it just reminded me of the bus on Borderlands and the whole setting being in this post-apocalyptic kind of world. And it is it's a downer that, the world that it's set in that sense. It's very colorful, but it's a bit of a downer. So anyway.
Yeah, and probably another part of the direct where some people were happy and some people weren't was the announcement that Skyward Sword is